You're the wrap-up bit.
Clean up.
You're number 14. Go ahead.
Don't you wish? I'm not going to tell you whether that is the case today. As many others have said, I'm going to continue to study this for a day or so to be sure. But the fact that I'm not going to give my decision today and the fact that I'm the wrap-up speaker doesn't mean that I'm not going to tell you what I think of what I see here and of the process. And I first want to go back to comments that have been made by many with regard to Erskine and Allen. I didn't know either of you well. I had probably met you in social occasions, but really during this commission deliberation is where I came to know both of you. And I have developed a great respect and friendship and admiration for you, and frankly for all of the other members of the commission. A number of the others of you I did not know well. Others I did know very well because of the machinations of Congress and how we work together here. But I just have to make the first comment that I think I've heard from all of you, that the relationships that we've developed on this commission have been a very big part of the success of it. And I personally have great respect and admiration for each of the commission members. I also want to add to that the other Idahoan on the commission, our executive director, Bruce Reed, and he has been outstanding in his efforts to help bring us together and to deliver work product for us as we've made demands. Now, having said that, I do share a lot of the opinions that have been expressed at the table by other members of the commission, and I won't go over all of those, but I want to just kind of, as many have done, talk about the positives and some of the concerns that I have. As with everybody here, I got a lot of heartburn about this. There are also some things in here that are really, really important to me and that I think to the American people. And let me just go through those a little bit. At the outset of this process, I was very concerned that this commission would take too small or too limited a view of our task. There has been plenty of discussion here at the table that I won't go over about the threat that we face and about how we are on an unsustainable course. And I will repeat what someone else said, that we are understating it. If we do not clearly spell out in our minds and for the American people what the alternative of inaction is. And in fact, for those who Alan mentioned who will be attacking whatever happens here from this commission or any other plans that are brought forward, I think it's important that America understands those attacks and understands the discourse and the debate that will take place on this issue in the context of what the status quo is, and whether the status quo is better or worse than what is being proposed in this or other plans and proposals. And frankly, when a clear understanding of what we are facing is achieved, I think a better perspective on this proposal is achieved. That being said, I was concerned as this process started out. Very concerned that we would have too limited a view and that we would not really take the opportunity to make the bold steps that need to be made and come forward with a bold, comprehensive plan that will help get us on the pathway to achieving the American dream as has been described here, and to making it so that this generation can pass on to the next generation the opportunity for a greater standard of living and for greater freedoms and for the ability to live their lives in this country with the freedom that they deserve. In terms of the strengths of this proposal that I see, one of the key strengths is that it does recognize that spending is the problem. It also, I think very fortunately, recognizes that on the revenue side, the issue is reform of our tax code. That is one of the most significant, big parts of this plan as I see it. I've said to many of you in other meetings that if we as a country set out to create a tax code that was more inefficient, more unfair, more costly to comply with, or more anti-competitive in terms of making us less competitive with the rest of the economies of the world, we probably couldn't do much worse a job than what we've got with our current tax code. And yet in Congress, we continue to have the debates, which we are having right now in other rooms in the Capitol building, about whether to raise or lower the rates. And what we ought to be talking about is what kind of a tax code should we have. And this proposal puts that on the table and moves the debate into the arena of how should we structure our tax code, which is a key part of how do we make our economy dynamic and strong and build back the strength that we need to build if we are going to deliver that American dream option in a strengthened position to the next generation. I think that that's very, very important. Erskine, I think you said that you didn't think we should hollow out our country while we were fixing our fiscal problems. And I agree with that. And on the revenue side of the picture, I think that is one of the key things that we must focus on. We must reform the tax code. In addition, as I've thought about the areas where I have problems, and as you might guess, they are similar to the issues that Jeb and Paul and Tom have raised, it struck me as I was thinking about it that in most of those areas, my concerns are with what is not in the plan as opposed to what is in the plan. Not all of them, but some of them, and in fact, most of them. I agree. I think it was David that said that he thought the plan ought to go further. And frankly, on the spending side, I think it should. It doesn't go far enough to get us where we need to get. And we need to have a more robust effort to address the spending issues. But the plan does take very strong steps on the spending side. As you know, Erskine, I have continuously harped about the fact that process is critical. You can control the outcome with process, or you can assure that you can't achieve the outcome if you don't have adequate process protections in place. And although there are some good process protections in here, I would like to see them strengthened so that we can have even a stronger guarantee that the path that this plan sets out is one that is followed. I appreciate, though, the fact that added to the reform just recently has been one of the requests that I made, that if we do, in fact, see a dynamic impact on our economy as a result of the tax reform and the spending reform and the other efforts of this panel, then those increases in revenue, as they are plugged into the fiscal picture of our Congress and our country, are to be used for deficit reduction or rate relief in our tax policy, as opposed to more spending. And I appreciate that reform being put into this package. That's one of those kinds of things that, just an example of one of the things that was put in that I thought wasn't in there when the first proposal was put out. I agree with the concerns about the limited nature of reform in the healthcare arena, which is probably the biggest arena on the spending side that we need to be reforming. And so I have concerns that we have not achieved what we need to achieve there, and we need to move forward. And where does all this bring me? There are others. I want to mention one other before I go on, and that is, as I believe Jeb mentioned, I've from day one believed that we should have some kind of an enforceable global spending cap. We've got a global revenue cap, and although it's a little higher than I think it should be, it's at least a cap. Right now the cap is 99 or 100%, and this is at least moving it dramatically in the right direction. And if you put in there the protections that if a dynamic economy does build out of what we were trying to do here, that the revenue is pushed into deficit reduction or rate relief, then that improves the circumstance there. But we need a global spending cap. So as I evaluate this plan, like I said, I'm not sure where I come down now, because there is a lot of heartburn in here with me, and there's a lot of very positive steps here that I think this country needs to be engaging in quickly. But as I look at it, I don't see anything that stops Congress from engaging in more health care reform. I don't see anything in the plan that says that we can't add some stronger process protections. And I don't see anything in the plan that says that we can't engage in further reform of the spending and further control and further reduction of the spending excesses in Congress. And so the question that I have is, are we putting into place a system that will at least get us heavily down the road in the right direction and allow the process in Congress to fill it out and strengthen it as we move forward? Or are we putting into place a system that really doesn't get there and sees the tax increases occur, but the spending reductions not occur, or the kinds of problems that have been referenced with earlier reforms? And those are the kinds of serious questions that I have. Frankly, if we can get rate reduction out of dynamic growth in the economy, we may be able to dramatically change the ratio. In fact, I think we will dramatically change the ratio of how much of the solution is coming from where it should be, which is the spending, versus revenue increases. And so I know that I've just sort of gone across the waterfront here on some of the issues, but I believe that these kinds of issues and this kind of thought process is what we ought to all go through as we evaluate whether we should vote to send this plan forward to Congress. Remember, I mean, this plan right now is a concept plan. It's got some good detail, but Congress is going to have to put a lot of structure to this as the proposals are turned from this stage into legislative language. And my hope is that some of my heartburn can be addressed in that process. And it's a question. You know, I really do struggle with whether we are going to give life to a process that can put us on the right path, moving in the right direction, and give us the opportunity to strengthen it, or whether it's a process that will end up putting into place the mechanisms for the kind of failures that I think some of the other efforts have faced in the past. And that'll be my decision, that'll be the basis on which I make my decision as I further review all of the provisions that you've got in here. But again, I want to thank you for the effort. It has been an outstanding work product to this point, and nobody could have done it better.
Thank you so much, Senator. Senator Conrad and I were down here shaking our heads at everything you said.